Dr. Nick here, self-proclaimed, of course. I don't want anyone legally coming after me, but um, Fowles, are you aware that more NBA players are injured this season, or at least star players have been injured this season than like any other season ever? Were you aware of this?
I was not aware of this, but I have
Okay.
noticed just as a casual fan that sometimes tunes into the NBA once a day minimum that a lot of players are going down. Yeah, I think if you look across the league here and just pick a team, random team almost, every second team, someone's down, someone's injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely observable.
So I think the beautiful thing about the internet is we have ideas and opinions, and then we can sometimes validate those ideas and opinions. And I was actually able to find a Fox Sports article, but it's not the only one. I'm sure there's others. But it kind of highlights that Hoops Hype did a little bit of analytics, and they were saying that, um, and this is kind of a weird thing to think about. They're talking about miles covered, but they're not talking about miles covered for travel. They're talking about miles traveled on the court. So this has nothing to do with flights or bus trips or anything like that. They're talking about time on the court and the running up and down the court and all the movements that they do. And it's increased. So back in the 1980s, miles were being covered sub 1300. And now in 2024, they're actually doing about probably 1500 or not more miles. So they're running about 200 more miles throughout the season than they used to. And the reason why this is problematic is because it basically means even though they might be playing as many minutes as they used to, or even slightly more minutes than they used to, they're doing more in those minutes. So players are faster, more athletic. The 5 out space run and gun basketball that everyone kind of adopts at this point. Everybody is doing more on the court, and so there seems to be a little bit of a trending correlation that because everyone's doing stuff on the court more, people are getting injured more. And the data over the last 10 years starts to validate that. There's been a lot of injury concerns. And I was just mentioning that we've had seasons in the past where everybody's getting injured and you go straight to should we reduce the season and rah, rah. Um, but it's either that or it's the NBA Cup. Everyone's too competitive too early in the season, and that's why people are getting hurt. What do you think?
No, look, it's a tricky one. I had a quick look through this article you sent me here. NBA's horror injury epidemic and the potential cause. I feel like the keyword there is potential cause, right? And we all talked about load management for all those years as potential causes. And then at some point we sort of took away the word potential and said, oh, this was the cause. Yeah, this was the cause. It's all about playing on the floor, and that sort of situation. I think the thing that to me is probably the most factual that I don't know how many people would disagree with me, sorry, with this factual observation that I'm going to make here is that the more you're on the court, the more risk you have of just getting injured. That's just the point, right? Yeah, if you're playing 48 minutes, you have 100% risk of getting injured there because you're playing the whole game. Yeah, so the less you play, the less chance you have of getting injured. Then you have to then add in some level of formula against it that's a person's body that people have more risk of getting injured than others. Yeah, okay. I played plenty of minutes, and touch wood here. Obviously, I've been very fortunate not to have any major injuries like you did. Yeah, and I guess in your situation is different. You played a lot, play more heavier load when you were younger. All right, but then you got your injuries, and then now you're done. Yeah, you're not playing anymore. You can't. Yeah, in that sense. Yeah, it's there's a lot of factors here that have to come together. So one, it's that player that has a risk here of getting injured. I can't work him too hard. But if a player's healthy and generally can play, maybe he can play a bit more. But even though he plays a bit more, that increases the risk. Every minute you leave that guy on the court leaves that risk. This is why you take players out in blowouts. Yeah, when you're up and down by 25 points and the game's over, regardless, you take him out because you don't need an injury risk to,
Well,
especially a core player. Yeah, correct.
now I'm going to slide in because I actually think you've helped a really good point here. Perhaps then you're right. It You do take your players out at 25 points, but in the NBA right now, a 25-point lead isn't safe until it's probably about halfway through the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
And maybe that's where the issue is that coaches analytically understand this. You can't pull Steph Curry. You can't make Steph Curry play a half of basketball because they're up by 30 at half, because teams make comebacks now. Even if teams don't succeed at the comeback, they stay competitive. They come out because of the three
I,
ball.
I'm gonna take that to another level though. I think, and I don't coach in the NBA, man. Okay, so I'm not gonna say that I do, yeah. But you have to also accept that teams will make runs at you. If you build a 25-point lead, as much as you'd like to hold it, as much as you'd like to then win that game by 40, you have to accept that a team the other team is also a pro league team, can make a run at you and chip that down to 15, maybe even 10. Okay, and you have to trust your rotation. And maybe this is different in different respects, and everyone has a different approach. Let's look at Steve Kerr versus Tom Thibodeau. Yeah, clearly very different approaches in philosophy and mindset on how you want to talk about these things. But as a coach myself, okay, and I'm obviously not a pro coach, I would say that if I build a 25-point lead, I can rest key players with the mindset that if my league gets eaten into, that they should be professionally enough to go back on to try and reverse the course of a run. Yeah, you always have to be able to think about like a fight, yeah, a boxing fight. It's like, yeah, they throw some punches, you got to throw some back, yeah. So maybe you've gone out there and had a hot first few rounds, okay. Then you're expecting them to keep coming back at you because they know yeah they're down by a bit, but then you got to be able to have a flurry at the end to be able to just take this game out, yeah. That in that sort of sense, okay. So I think that's the point. And sometimes that doesn't happen. That's true. Sometimes teams just go on a run back and then they take they overcome a 25-point game and then it's a huge comeback and they win that game because the team that had the lead could not overcome that run at some point. But the answer there is not to just leave your starters on that whole time. Yeah, or just leave your core players on that whole time. It's just being prepared in those scenarios. Okay, and I think from a professional perspective, I would imagine that you would do something like that. I don't know. I know from a junior level it's a bit harder, but it's the same thing. You're good teams. You know when you go on there, you can build leads. You can rest your starters. Maybe the league gets in a bit into. Then you send on your players back on if needed. If needed, all right, to just you know fix the course of the game there. And what's going on that right then. But look, I guess again, Tom Thibodeau ain't going to change his philosophy. I think he's going to play his players, 35 to 40 minutes this game, and if they all break down in the playoffs, then we're all pointing the finger at him, right? But if they don't break it down in the playoffs and if this pays off for the Knicks, hey, I don't know. Then shit, they're going to get even more minutes now next year, isn't it? I don't know. Who knows?